Hey, everybody. So, something's been bothering me lately. Um, I heard a sermon this past weekend preached by a white pastor, and he said something that I didn't sit right with me, and I couldn't quite figure out why. And then the very next day, I heard a podcast from another very prominent Christian influencer who said almost verbatim the same thing. And so I started thinking about it, trying to figure out why I didn't agree with it, but I needed to do some thinking. And what they said was, we don't have a race problem, we have a sin problem. And I think the first part of that statement, we don't have a race problem, I think is patently false. And I don't think it's right for someone to say that, especially a white person. We're not the ones who get to decide whether or not we have a race problem, those of us in the majority. Um, so, for example, um, I can say I'm a nice person, but I'm not the one who decides that. The people around me decide whether or not I'm a nice person or I'm a jerk. I can say I'm a nice person all day long, but if I treat people poorly, they're the ones who are going to decide that. Another example is I can tell my wife all day long that I love her. I can say the words, I love you. But unless that behavior, those words are followed up with behavior that demonstrates that love, she doesn't believe it. And it doesn't matter if I say it if she doesn't believe it. So we can say we don't have a race problem, but unless people of other races, specifically our black and brown brothers and sisters, unless they believe it, unless there's evidence to show that me as an individual is not a racist, and us as a society are not racist, um, those words are hollow. So, for my friends, would they say that I'm not a racist? I certainly hope so. But I know I've got a lot of work to do, and I've been working with a lot of very close friends of color who've been candid about their experiences and shown me a lot of where my thinking has been wrong. Um, as a society, some of our government practices and community policies are showing that there is a huge disparity between white and black and brown people. So, is there evidence there to show that we don't have a race problem? I don't think that's true. We have a sin problem. Yes, I'll agree with that. We do have a sin problem, but to make a statement like that and to lump it in under this umbrella um, marginalizes it, and it puts it kind of out out there, out beyond the walls of the church, especially for those of us who are sitting in the pews, comfortable, um, and thinking that because I am a Christian, I have been redeemed, my sins have been forgiven, that there is nothing more that I need to do and work on in and of myself, that the sin problem is out there, and that they just need Jesus. And once the world has Jesus, then all these problems will go away. And I don't think that's entirely true either, because we've seen time and time again in the church, we still have problems, and race is still one of them. Once we become saved, our journey's not done. And I'll highlight a couple of scriptures for you. Paul in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12. He says, "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence." And here's the key: work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. It's a process, it's not a moment. We have to keep growing. And Paul addresses that growth as a Christian, as growth as a Christian. He addresses it in 1 Corinthians 13, chapter 13, verse 11. "When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." We have to grow and learn. Some of the things that we think and believe about our own experiences aren't the same experiences that other people have had. And the perceptions that we have, our beliefs and our values are formed based on our experiences and our perceptions of those experiences. But they're not the same as what everyone else has experienced. So the more we get into what other people have experienced, the more we can apply biblical truths to those experiences and grow within ourselves and help others along the way. These are some things that I think as a church we really need to take stock of and learn. For us to say that we don't have a race problem is insensitive, and it's wrong. It's along the lines of saying, well, all lives matter. Well, of course, all lives matter. But if we look at it in context of, say, Luke chapter 15, where Jesus talks about the parable of the lost sheep, where there were 99 that were in relative safety, and he went after the one that was lost. In our society today, under the government and community policies that are designed to keep black and brown people poor and uneducated, they are the lost sheep. And if you think that that's wrong, if you think I'm out of bounds on that, I would encourage you to look up the practice of redlining. I won't explain what it is. Just Google it. Look up redlining, and you'll see that some of our policies that exist are designed to keep minorities poor and uneducated. And poor and uneducated oftentimes leads to desperation, which leads to crime, which is another issue. Our incarceration rates for black and brown people are disproportionately high. And it's easy for us to say, well, just don't commit crimes. But we haven't had those experiences. We haven't experienced the generations of oppression and being denied jobs and being denied loans for houses and being denied just basic human rights for generations. And yes, so we do have a race problem in the United States. And we have a sin problem. As a church, I think it's important for us to examine our own hearts. Where are our faults? What can we do to be more loving to the people around us and to our African American and black and brown brothers and sisters? The best way that I can think of is to just sit down and have a conversation. Stay away from the news and the statistics and even a lot of the social media posts that are out there right now. They're gonna skew you in one direction or another. But sit down, have a conversation, a cup of coffee with someone who doesn't look like you, and just ask questions. What's it like? What are some of your experiences? Don't accuse. Don't offer an opinion. Just ask. Put yourself in their situation. What is it like to be black in America? What is it like to be you? I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll be disappointed in yourself, maybe, but in our country in general. And then we have to, now that we have the information, when you have that information, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to act? So those are some things that have been weighing on me. And I hope that we all think about it. And I'm still working things out. I'm still struggling with things, and I'm having a lot of conversations with some of my black and brown brothers and sisters, and who are being very gracious and patient with me. And I would imagine that there are people in your life too who you can sit down and have a conversation with, who would be very candid with you, but also be very patient. As long as you're humble and empathetic. So those are my thoughts. If you completely disagree with me, that's okay. But leave a comment below. And if I'm wrong on something, please point me out, point me in the right direction. I try to be teachable. But those are my thoughts.